Here we have a question of the following is a best diagnostic modality and investigate the parotid swelling. They're asking the best diagnostic modality to investigate the parotid swelling. We have option of fine needle aspirations, excisional biopsy, and enucleations. So if you choose the answer option A, it is the right answer. It is a fine needle aspiration. Not only for the parotid swelling, it can be used also for any salivary gland swelling. That is the best diagnostic modality for to investigate any salivary gland swelling. This is option A, as also used for any salivary gland swelling. So you have an exceptional doubt that why we can't use a biopsy. So I will explain you why we are not using biopsy to investigate the parotid swelling. There are two main reasons if we perform exceptional biopsy. It's lead to two conditions. That is, one is leads to fistula. So this is the reason why we are not doing the exceptional biopsy in the investigation of any salivary gland swelling or an parotid swelling. That one is lead to fistula and the other one is a seeding of tract. That is seeding to tract. This is the two condition. If it is excisional biopsy, this leads to fistula and seeding to tract. So if you do a biopsy, there will be two openings, right? We have two openings. So if you do excisional biopsy, there will be the formation of fistula. Fistula may form. That is the one reason we are not doing the excisional biopsy. And other reason is seeding of tract. That is, if the patient is having any carcinoma of swelling in a parotid gland, just keep it in mind, any carcinoma of swelling gland, if the patient is having any carcinoma swelling gland, if you take the excisional biopsy, it's lead to the seeding of tract, that the seed the tract with malignant cells. This, if you take the excisional biopsy in the patients with the carcinoma of swelling in a parotid gland, will lead to the seeding of tract, that is the seed the tract with malignant cells. These two conditions are very rare when compared to the fine needle aspiration. That is the best diagnostic modality to find investigate the parotid swelling. So FNC is a best diagnostic. Then enucleation, we have another option, enucleation. We all know that enucleation is a treatment choice. It is not used for the diagnostics. The most common tumor of salivary gland is a pleomorphic adenoma. As we all know that the most tumor of salivary gland is a pleomorphic adenoma. So if this enucleation contraindicated in this pleomorphic adenoma. So if enucleation is a pleomorphic adenoma, the patient comes to you with a multicentric recurrence. See that another one noted thing is multicentric recurrence. Enucleation contraindicated in pleomorphic adenoma. If enucleation in pleomorphic adenoma, the patient comes to you with a multicentric recurrence because of, can anyone say that is because of a pseudocapsule? The another one is important one, that is because of pseudocapsule. That is mainly because of the pseudophodia formed in the adenoma. Then this is another important one. You can be noted because of pseudocapsule. Why? That is because of pseudopodia. That pseudopodia present in the adenoma. So we have seen the fine needle aspiration, excisional biopsy, and enucleation. In according to the explanation, the fine needle aspiration is the best diagnostic modality for the investigation. So we have the question of which of the following is the most common cause of pyrogenic liver abscess. They're asking the most common cause for a pyrogenic liver abscess. So we have options of trauma, biliary tract infections, chronic diverticulitis, and then we have appendicitis. And so if you have been choosing appendicitis, it is previously in the early period, that is the most common. and before. Now, as nowadays, because the diagnosis and treatment is getting more advanced and modulated, so its frequency to cause liver abscess is less than very 10%. So it is not going to be the most common cause of pyrogenic liver abscess, and the correct option is a biliary tract infection, as I ticked in the option, that is option B is the most common cause for pyrogenic liver abscess, that is a biliary tract infection. That ascending infection, that is ascending infection, that from the biliary tract, the infection is ascending from the biliary tract is the most common cause for the pyrogenic liver abscess. An abscess may be the result of recent surgery, or it might be the because of secondary infection, and also due to appendicitis and diverticulitis in some rare cases. See, as I said before, appendicitis nowadays it become very rare to the cause of pyrogenic liver abscess. This abscess may be a result of recent surgery, or might be the secondary infection, and also due to the appendicitis and colonic diverticulitis. And the answer we have said biliary tract infection. If at all any obstruction in the biliary tract happens, see, if at all any obstruction in the biliary tract it happens, and it leads to cholangitis, the cholangitis will develop, and because of this cholangitis, the infection will ascend up to the liver. It will get ascend up to the liver because of the cholangitis is getting up to the liver, and this will lead to the pyrogenic liver abscess. Let me tell you, consider this as liver, and we have a bile. So, if any obstruction in the biliary tract has a cholangitis, it will get ascend to the liver. Due to that, the any cholangitis happens in the biliary tract, it will get ascends up to the liver, and due to that, it will cause a pyrogenic liver abscess. So we have another causes. If the patient is suffering from the diverticulitis of colon, as I said, it is also caused by the colonic diverticulitis. The other cause, if the patient is suffering from the diverticulitis of colon, it can travel to the portal vein. As I said, consider this, the colon, there will be diverticulitis of this colon. The patient, if is suffering from the diverticulitis of colon, this can travel to the portal vein. Okay, this can travel to the portal vein and enter to the liver. How it is? How the colonic diverticulitis can be the cause of pyrogenic liver abscess? Because of the diverticulitis of the colon, this will enter, this will can travel to the portal vein, and it can directly enter to the liver, and due to that, because of that, some hematogen can also be the cause of a pyrogenic liver abscess. And this might be this question can also be asked in a different portion. What is the most common organism that is responsible for pyrogenic liver abscess? So if you say that is Escherichia coli, that is the common thing, but it not in the Asian countries. So this is the most common organism responsible for pyrogenic liver abscess around the world is Escherichia coli. But in coming to the Asian countries, especially in India, that is called a Klebsiella pneumonia. That is we have identified as Klebsiella pneumoniae. And particularly if come to the children, that is a chronic disease that has happened due to the Staphylococcus aureus. Try to follow with me. In if it is an adult, that is will be a Klebsiella pneumoniae. In children, whether worse to the chronic disease, it is caused by the Staphylococcus aureus. So we have seen the most common organism that is responsible for pyrogenic liver abscess. Then what are the most common site of rupture of pyrogenic liver abscess? So now we are getting into another portion of question that related to the pyrogenic liver abscess. What is the most common site of rupture that of pyrogenic liver abscess? So if you say that is a we have a three over we can related to three, that is a peritoneal, and we can also go for a pericardial or pleural cavity. If you say there is a pleural, it is not because the most common site of rupture in the pyrogenic liver abscess is happen in the peritoneal. So this might be asked. So it is the peritoneal. And what is the diagnostic mode? We can go to the sonogram or CT. It's a diagnostic, and percutaneous drainage is required. And if we come to the treatment, we can go for antibiotics. And for example, we can take a clindamycin and cephalaxin. Clindamycin is a sometimes this penicillin also can act on the pyrogenic liver abscess. Let me tell you how. As I said before, for some of the antibiotic that of clindamycin, that is the class of lincomycin antibiotic, and then as I said, for some of the antibiotic, that is cephalaxacin, that is the class of cephalosporin antibiotic. But sometimes the cephalaxin has an side effect of mostly the diarrhea. Most common side effect in this cephalaxin, if you even take in the pharmacological dose also, you can have an effect of diarrhea in most patients. And clindamycin, and then we have, as I said, penicillin. When it is compared to children, we can go for a diclosaxicillin, that is about 250 to 500 mg, that is supposed to be every 6 hours. We can go for around 5 to 7 days also. This diclosaxicillin is a group of class of narrow spectrum beta lactam antibiotic of penicillin class. As we all know that this is a narrow spectrum beta lactam antibiotic of penicillin classes. This dicloxacillin is active against the beta lactamase producing organism. As I said, in children it is going to be the Staphylococcus aureus. This Staphylococcus aureus a is a gram positive bacteria. This is going to produce a beta lactamase. This dicloxacillin is going to act against the beta lactamase producing organism, that is Staphylococcus. So Klebsiella pneumoniae is a gram positive. This penicillin typically it is going to act against gram negative, that is Staphylococcus aureus. How it acts? Because it's going to act against the beta lactamase producing organism. That beta lactamase is going to produced by the Staphylococcus aureus. And this why? Because of this dicloxacillin, because it is a narrow spectrum beta lactam antibiotic of penicillin class, because it is a beta lactam antibiotic class of penicillin. So it going to act on the Staphylococcus aureus, especially in, as I said, in the children, it is the Staphylococcus aureus is the most common cause for the pyrogenic liver abscess. And what is the future of this pyrogenic liver abscess? We have seen the all the chronic diverticulitis, appendicitis, and some of the organisms and the typical signs. And now we are going to see the features. What is the feature found in the pyrogenic liver abscess? That is, the typical appearance is cluster sign. This might be asked. This is a cluster sign. It is the typical appearance for the pyrogenic liver abscess. So we have seen the other causes and also the most common site and the diagnostic modality, that is a sonogram, or might be the CT scan is the diagnostic method. And what is the treatment? There should be a percutaneous drainage is required if there is a more pus and it is lead to swelling and more painful. And then the treatment, that is going to be antibiotic, and some cases we can prefer use penicillin also. We have clindamycin and cephalaxin, but cephalaxin if you use, most of the patients come with the side effect of diarrhea, and this is because of this is a cephalosporin antibiotic, and clindamycin is a class of lincomycin antibiotic. In children we can use this dicloxacillin because of that. This is going to be a narrow spectrum beta lactam antibiotic of penicillin classes. It is going to active against the beta lactamase producing organism, that is like for example Staphylococcus aureus, and Staphylococcus aureus is a gram positive bacteria, as well as the Klebsiella pneumoniae is a gram negative bacteria. And what is the typical future appearance of the pyrogenic liver abscess? That is a cluster